Whatever's happening in your world, assess it. What do you need to do? How is it affecting you physically? I would practice self-care on a regular basis, and I mean daily, weekly if you have to, but daily if possible. Meditate, pray, yoga. Make sure you're moving, whether it's 10 minutes, whether it's 30 minutes, whatever, get in nature. Do things that feel good, breathing practices. As I mentioned, toxic relationships, I feel like these can really mess with your health really badly. Whether it's like familial, sometimes spouses, sometimes friendships, really work on, either getting away from them or working on creating healthier relationships with people and friendships that are non-toxic, because those toxic people can actually make you ill. They can.
Today's guest is Leslie Porter, health and wellness mentor and coach. Leslie has been teaching and practicing Ayurveda, various styles of yoga, Pilates, and meditation, and has been a somatic counselor for over 25 years. Her
Yeah.
superpower her superpowers are her empathy, humor, and intuition. Welcome, Leslie.
Hi. So happy to be here. I love that we're in like completely different countries, but we can, it almost feels like we're next door.
Absolutely. What is one of the most courageous things that you have done?
I love this question so much. There's a lot of courageous things I've done, but I definitely feel I was a tenured professor, super safe job, health and wellness, kinesiology department in a university here in California. And I resigned and I was there for almost 20 years, and I resigned to work for myself and to go on my own. And that, safe job, you have insurance, everything. And I said, you know what, I'm ready to transition.
So, what took you on your journey of being a health and wellness coach? Did this naturally fall into place, or is it from your experiences?
It's definitely from my experiences. It's one of those things where my toolbox is really big. I've been trained in a lot of various things for various reasons. My own healing, my clients' healing, trying to find information to make sure that I can be the best possible practitioner I can be. It just turned into that, where I have programs that help people, and I help people with sleep and stress and inflammation, which we're going to talk about today, anxiety, and things that I think are rampant and can cause a lot of different problems. But I'm grateful that I have tools to help people heal from these things so that they can be their optimal selves and live more balanced, because I don't think we're a very balanced world.
Absolutely. So, how did you get involved in these practices and teachings?
This is a really long story. So I would say when I started practicing because of my own suffering in my teen years, I started doing my own personal practice. I had not planned on doing my first yoga teacher training, which was when I was probably like 2019. I did it just to learn more. It wasn't to teach. I had no plans on teaching or going in this direction. I thought I was going to be more of a fashion designer or graphic designer, but it winded up sometimes things choose you. And it just ended up happening where the students you have to work with during your teacher training were like, where are you going to go next? And I said, I'm not. And they're like, here's my number, wherever you go, let us know. And some of those people stayed with me 20 years. And it just ended up, I kept getting jobs and it just worked out that way I could not think of anything else I'd rather do. I love it so much. My why at this point is really when someone calls me on the phone and they're like, I don't need medication anymore for sleep, or I don't need medication anymore for anxiety. I don't, my doctor said my bone density is better. I'm not yelling at my husband anymore. You know what I mean? Things like that. I get, oh yeah, this is my why. This is why I do this, because it
That's,
helps people.
that's brilliant. And you've trained in so many things. Tell me
I
more
know.
about that, Leslie.
Well, in the beginning, again, it was about me and working through my own. I used to have insomnia. It was, how do I sleep better? Because I couldn't really sleep. And I got trained in holistic practices to help with sleep. And then once I did that, I had a car accident. It really injured me. There's so many reasons. One of them, these are a couple. I got into a car accident and I hurt myself from my neck down into the shoulder. I hurt my
Oh
back
gosh.
and I was already a yoga
Mhm.
teacher, but I couldn't move very well. And I was a dancer too, and I could not move
Oh,
well
wow.
at all. I was in so much pain. I couldn't even move my head back then. It was really terrible. I got hit really, I mean, I'm in Los Angeles. People in LA just
Mhm,
aren't great drivers. So like I was actually at a stop and I got hit at a
mhm.
diagonal really hard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, basically, I did trainings on how to get myself back into moving because
Mhm,
I was physically in so much pain, I couldn't even do yoga. So, even though I was a yoga teacher, so I had to get trained in other things to get myself back to movement, which actually helped me help the others who couldn't move well. And then, it just kept spiraling. There was like I said, I was a professor, and you probably hear this on your news all the time about us that we have these shootings that happen in schools, and
mhm.
we had one at my school and 7
Wow.
people were killed. And so I was like, I better go get trained in like working with PTSD because people keep coming to me for that,
Mhm,
right? So there's so many various reasons why.
mhm.
And even though, to be clear, I am a pharmacist's daughter and granddaughter, I have this background of
Yeah.
Western knowledge. So if I can help someone not need those and
Yeah,
find a different way
definitely.
of being that's healthier and cleaner and aligned, I mean, I don't work with mental illnesses, but like if someone's just stressed out at work or they're with someone toxic or something or they're grieving, they don't always
Mm,
need medication. It's just like general stress. Let's work on that. Don't
for
need
sure.
just the medication to sometimes band-aid the situation versus like let's get to the root of this. So yeah, I trained
Absolutely.
because of all of these different things
Mm,
that happened over time that pushed me to go, okay, well, I better go get trained in that. And this to help myself, this to help my friends, this to help my clients. And I believe
it's
in
brilliant.
ancestral trauma. Like I believe we inherit some of our
Mhm,
own
mhm,
from our families. We inherit we have our
mhm,
own version, we have our own stuff, and then we have our familial stuff. I believe that, there's like usually one family member where they're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
yeah,
um,
absolutely.
I don't want to live this way anymore. This isn't working for me. And
Mm,
it's usually like the
mm,
sensitive, empathic one. These are like one of my
mhm.
favorite people, by the way. Like the ones who are like, I'm done. I don't want to
Yeah.
do this. And they want to stop this pattern. And I find that those people are the ones where, there are ways of working through it, but the world affects them in a certain way. And so we need to
Mm,
find a way to support those
mm,
people because, in my opinion, because they are the ones that create a lot of change where it's uncomfortable for like the status
mhm,
quo. And
mhm,
anyway, I could talk
mhm.
about this for a really long time, but that you do know what I'm saying? So there's
Yeah,
so many different
absolutely.
levels of
Brilliant.
this.
Yeah, for sure.
And I
That's
love it.
brilliant.
And yeah, I love it. I just wish my goal is like, we can only create a peaceful, I have a peaceful revolutionary like feeling in my back,
Mhm,
right? Like that's,
mhm.
and the only way we could create more peace is if we work on it ourselves within ourselves. It's
Mm,
really the only way. We all have our own
for
little version of
sure.
that, right? So I feel like it is, hopefully we choose that path of how do we internally work through that to create more peace in ourselves so that we don't become bitter, crazy people.
Definitely need more of that.
Oh my
Definitely.
god. Every
Darkness.
country, right? Like I
Yeah.
mean, if I could still smile and be okay after all of these things, right? Like
Mm.
a car accident and a shooting and whatever, and I really have no desire to hurt anyone, I feel like,
Absolutely.
it's why do
Mm.
we need vengeance? Let's work on the reason of it's okay to be
Mhm.
angry. Anger is healthy. But how do we
Yes.
the civil rights movement wouldn't have happened if someone didn't get pissed off,
Let's not go
right?
there now.
So, but let's also work through it. Let's be proactive.
Mhm.
Let's not be the problem. We don't need to create more problem.
We're going to talk about inflammation. So let's discuss in that realm of pillars of wellness, managing stress, sleep, diet, and so on. So tell me
Yeah.
more about that, please, Leslie.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been thinking about this a lot. I wanted to go into symptoms of inflammation first because sometimes I don't think we would call it that, right? We go, something's wrong,
Mhm.
but we don't know what
Mhm.
those symptoms are. We'll say something like, I have neck tension, I have headaches, my low back hurts, I'm tired, I have pain somewhere, I'm not concentrating well, cognitive decline, brain fog, injuries aren't healing,
Mhm.
joint pain, toxicity, your digestion's not happening. These are digestion's not working well, whether it's too much or
Mhm.
too little. These are symptoms of inflammation. I think of it as balance. We don't actually have a
Mhm.
good work-life balance really in most, I mean, in my
Mm.
country, not at all. I mean, you guys, at least
Yeah, definitely.
in some countries, they get like time off. In my country, it's like I'm going to go get like cancer treatment. It's lunch break, but I'll be right back. Right. In my country, it's like, I mean, I'm not even exaggerating. My client, she's like, oh, I told my boss I was going to go have cancer treatment, but you can reach me by text at any time. And I'm like, what are you doing? That's, that's crazy. I mean, she did
Mm,
do this. This is a real story. So stress, unresolved trauma, um, nutrition, not great. Environmental toxins, lack of sleep. This is really
mm,
important. Sleep is
yeah,
really an issue.
absolutely.
And the
Yes.
thing with sleep that I want to mention is that we don't realize this. There are science that shows I'm into science and the spiritual. So the science shows that if we use things like melatonin and Ambien too much, you can create dementia or cognitive decline down the line. So it's very important to address these things in a way that makes sense. Working to live versus living to work, right? Pleasure. We need pleasure. If we
Mm,
don't have that, our body will respond in a way with more inflammation. So it really seems like, these symptoms that come up, we think, oh, I just stubbed my big toe, but suddenly the whole body is hurting and something's happening where it's not healing. There's too much inflammation in the body. And I think it's, we need to address the lifestyle, not just, the symptom. We need to address the lifestyle that's behind it,
mhm,
because I went to the doctor this week. I hurt my arm right here.
mhm,
And I started PT, physical therapy, a few months ago. Another woman my age, I say this is really important because another woman my age, she hurt the same spot, same age. She's not healing. I'm almost done. And
mhm,
my physical therapist said to me this week, Monday, he said, you're healing quicker because you move. Your lifestyle's more like low inflammation diet. You meditate and
mm.
you deal with your stress much better. You sleep better. You do all the things you need to do, because and this injury is healing much, much quicker than my other client who is the same age as you and does not move and does
Mm.
not eat well. But he did make a point. He said, I cannot want your health more than you.
Mm. Interesting, isn't it?
Right.
Everything has a knock-on effect.
Completely. We don't even realize it, right? I mean, if you don't do anything, guess what? Your body's going to respond to that, right? If you don't do what you need to do to get yourself in optimal health, your body will respond to that. There are ways there are things to question with yourself to, get to more optimal place. You just have
Yeah,
to want
yeah,
it.
absolutely. You've got to like think of your own health, and yeah, like you say, like anything, you've got to want to. You've got to help yourself,
You got to want
and
it
that's
and
the
be
main
willing. I
thing.
think it's your will.
Mm,
You had
mm,
asked me, I know this is probably not the time for this particular question, but you
mm.
asked me how I defined courage. And one of the things that I think is important is that sense of being willing to wake up in the morning in this crazy, weird world. I
Well,
actually have a
that'll
different
come on.
answer for that later, but but in
Mm,
general, that, it takes courage. It takes your will it's the same thing here. It takes your will. It's your will to get better. It's your will to go, I can do this. I'm going to shift
mm.
this. I can't live off this way anymore. Something has to kind
Absolutely.
of, you're right. Something has to say to you, I'm done. Do
Mm,
not wait till you get sick, because it's too late then. You've got to do all this before the illness. You could still, work through it when you're sick, but it's going to be much harder. I try to get to people way before this because they can do way more before the illness starts. There's a lot you can do.
that's brilliant. Absolutely. So, what natural remedies can support that? And how can we help ourselves with our inflammation? Reduce stress, obviously, have radiant health. How can we start to do that?
Well, I think, I have a list of things that people
Hmm.
really need to start questioning. One of them
Hmm.
is assess work demands and balance with health needs and goals. That's
Hmm.
really, really important because, let's say you have let's say you have a toxic boss or a toxic colleague, or your work is 100 hours a week. You
Mm.
may need to reassess some stuff there and figure out, do I need to delegate? Do I need to get a different job where I like my colleagues? The toxicity will affect you over time. I've definitely had my share
Sure.
of toxic I've had my share of toxic relatives too, but my toxic bosses or toxic colleagues.
Mhm.
And by chance I'm just going to use an example, by chance they're a narcissist and they're gaslighting you. This is not a healthy environment. You really need to reevaluate because this will affect your body. This is very
Mhm.
important. So I would, whatever's happening in your world, assess it. What do you need to do? How is it affecting you physically? I would practice self-care on a regular basis, and I mean daily, weekly if you have to,
Mm.
but daily if possible. Meditate, pray, yoga. Make sure you're moving, whether it's 10 minutes, whether it's 30 minutes, whatever, get in nature. Do things that feel good, breathing practices. As I mentioned, toxic relationships, I feel like these can really mess with your health really badly. Whether
Mhm.
it's like familial, sometimes spouses, sometimes friendships, really work on, either getting away from them or working on creating healthier relationships with people and friendships that are non-toxic, because those toxic people can actually make you ill. They can. I'm not going to lie on that. And I would also make sure you're creating, I think of it as like, I'm going to just use myself as an example here. Um, get team Leslie or, get team Anita, right? Like get your friends, the right people to surround
Yes.
you. It affects your energy. It affects your health. You want
Mhm.
be around good people. Check your diet and your supplementation if needed, right? If you need supplements, do that. But check your food. Are you eating whole foods? Are you eating organic? I know, I
Mm.
don't know what the cost of, though when I was in London, the food was just so expensive. In LA, the market, the groceries have significantly increased to this way that's very difficult. And I'm sure
Same here.
organic there too.
Mhm.
Yeah, organic has just become
Mm.
really expensive, but like honor the
Mhm.
farmers market, know where your food's coming from.
Yes.
Try to go as whole. If you don't understand something on a label, don't eat it. That's a really good thing, right?
Absolutely.
If there's some weird
Absolutely.
thing on a label, don't eat the food. I mean, there's something wrong with it probably. I would also check your makeup. So this is the environmental part, right? Like check what's in your makeup, check
Mhm.
what's in your moisturizer, your deodorant. If you have all this toxins going in your skin in a place where your lymph
Mm.
glands are, like, that is a really bad thing. You've got to go more holistic. So also, I always find a coach if you need one, get help. Um,
Definitely.
and cleanse seasonally. I'm super into cleansing seasonally, but not
Mhm.
in a toxic way. I'm not into I'm probably one of the only people. I'm not into intermittent fasting, and I'm not
Mhm.
into these juice cleanses, because I feel like if
Mm.
someone has issues with food, these things are not good. Like if they have an anorexic tendency, I feel like that's just going to mess them up a lot and they could get very obsessive with that. So I'm not
Mhm.
usually great, I live in LA.
Mhm.
We're kind of obsessed with bodies and stuff. I just don't feel like that's the greatest choice.
Okay.
But I am
Mhm.
into like, okay, so this week maybe you eliminate high inflammatory foods like sugar,
Mm.
dairy, and wheat. And let's see what happens, right? And beef and maybe animal products just for like maybe even 3 days, right? And eat totally in season. That's what I mean by cleanse seasonally. Like just
Mhm.
let's see what happens in the body with that. Because your body is going to hold emotional stuff. So by chance you're an
Mhm.
emotional eater and you start cleansing, I would not be surprised if like you start crying suddenly. You're like, why am I crying? Well, because you're cleaning it out now. It's not staying stuck in you.
Definitely. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, these are really important, I think, to keep questioning and checking in. And I think of it as a reset or a reevaluation. I do this with
Mhm.
myself. I do this with my clients. It's really important to keep checking in, to keep checking
Yes.
in. Are you giving too much away? Do you need to pull some of your
Mhm.
energy back? What is going on for you?
It's brilliant, Leslie. You've given us so many tips and tools there. I
And
really
I've given a lot.
appreciate it. Thank you.
You're
So,
welcome.
where can the listeners find you online? What's your website?
They can find me at leslieporter.com. I do work with men and women. So my
Mhm.
website makes it look like I just work with women, but I do work with men and women. And
Okay.
so www.leslie, Leslie, Porter, Port is in Tom, er.com. And you can always email me. I
Mhm.
have 3 programs. One's a supplementation program. One is private coaching on all the holistic tools I just mentioned. Like if you don't know how to breathe, if you don't know
Mhm.
meditation, if you don't know yoga, I teach all those things. Personally, I create personalized self-care routines. And I've gotten people off of anti-anxiety pills and sleeping pills sometimes within 3 weeks. Yeah, I would say my last 8 clients, I got off of it within 3 weeks to a month. They don't need it anymore. I have a yoga and Pilates program too, like a 10-minute program for busy people who don't have time. So they can read all about all of those things on my website and just email to say hi.
That's brilliant. And thank you for sharing your courageous, insightful wisdom and knowledge with us today. And by doing so, I know you've helped so many other people, Leslie Porter.
I hope so. It's my goal to help as many as I can.
So we are all about create the courage to be fearless. What is your definition of courage?
So I feel like the world can be a really hard place to be in. It's really
Hmm.
hard sometimes. I think that if someone says, be positive all the time, they're not paying attention.
Hmm.
There's some things that are just not positive. It can be very difficult. If you're not sure, go put on the news. It's not an easy
Definitely.
place to be in sometimes. And I think it's somewhat of a privilege to be that positive, to be able to just stay, okay, let's just be positive. I think it's important to be real and authentic, more than
Hmm.
positive. So waking up in general does take courage. It does. However,
Yes.
it does every day. Waking up and going, because I'm in my 40s, and some people don't make it to 40. So I
Hmm.
think it's really important every day to honor our days, to appreciate our body. That takes courage. It's the willingness, right? It takes courage. But I feel that being said, I honor that human experience. But that being said, the highly sensitive ones, the empaths, the introverts, the underdog, those people, it is much harder. It is so much harder
Hmm.
to do that. They're underappreciated and undervalued. It takes so much more courage for them to wake up in the morning and go, I can do this. I'm going to do my job today. I'm going to do, those people who, are really trying to get through. I feel like those are the people that takes so much more courage, and I feel for them, and I just send them so much love, and I just want to encourage them to keep going because I know for those people it's much harder. I know it is. I hear it from them all the time. It's very so I'm their ally, and and this can go into different thing, right? There's a race element to it and a sex element to it and the LGBTQ element to it. I mean, there's so many elements to that. That I'm talking about like all the layers of that I hear you, I see you, and I know that takes so much courage. So keep going.